In the early 1990s, India stood on the precipice of economic disaster, but one man, often overshadowed by others, quietly reshaped the course of the nation's destiny. A man who believed that India could no longer remain isolated from the world. A man whose vision would lay the foundation for the economic powerhouse India is today. This is the story of P.V. Narasimha Rao, the man who became the architect of India's economic reforms. Born in 1921 in a small village in what is now Telangana, P.V. Narasimha Rao came from humble beginnings. The son of a teacher, Rao was instilled with a deep sense of discipline and a thirst for knowledge. His early education would spark a lifelong curiosity that later translated into a keen understanding of India's political and economic challenges. Growing up during the British Raj, Rao was deeply influenced by the freedom struggle. His early involvement in the Indian independence movement would shape his later political philosophy. But it was not just politics that interested him. He was a man of intellect, a polymath, with a passion for literature, languages, and international affairs. As India gained independence in 1947, Rao turned his focus to political service. He joined the Indian National Congress and quickly rose through the ranks. From his early days as a member of the Legislative Assembly in Andhra Pradesh to the Chief Minister of the state, Rao demonstrated his political acumen. His leadership in Andhra Pradesh earned him the respect of his peers, but it was his time as India's Prime Minister, beginning in 1991, that would define his legacy. By 1991, India faced an economic crisis of unprecedented scale. Foreign exchange reserves were at an all-time low. Inflation was high. The country was on the brink of defaulting on its loans. Political instability and a lack of foresight had plunged India into economic isolation. When Narasimha Rao became Prime Minister in June 1991, India's economic future seemed uncertain. But Rao, backed by his finance minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, had a plan to transform the country. The path was fraught with challenges and opposition, but Rao's vision for India was clear: to integrate India into the global economy. In the face of overwhelming adversity, Narasimha Rao's government took the bold step of economic liberalization in 1991. The reforms were sweeping: devaluation of the rupee, reduction of trade barriers, tax cuts, and the privatization of state-owned enterprises. India, once a closed economy, was now open to the world. Rao and Singh's reforms opened the door for foreign investment, boosted exports, and transformed the business environment in India. The country's private sector began to grow, and multinational companies began to see India as a market with enormous potential. However, not everyone agreed with the reforms. The changes were met with fierce opposition from within the political spectrum. Some feared that liberalization would lead to job losses, particularly in agriculture and small industries. Others saw it as a betrayal of socialist ideals. But Narasimha Rao remained steadfast. He believed that India could no longer afford to remain isolated. His pragmatism allowed him to push through the reforms despite the political risks. The reforms had an immediate effect. India's economy began to grow at an unprecedented rate. The middle class expanded, foreign investment flooded in, and new industries, especially in technology and services, flourished. The Indian IT revolution, which became the engine for growth in the 21st century, was set in motion. Narasimha Rao's policies fundamentally changed the trajectory of India's growth. What we see today, the rise of India as a global economic player, started in the early 1990s. Despite his monumental achievements, P.V. Narasimha Rao often found himself in the shadows. He was not a man who sought fame or recognition. Humble and soft-spoken, he believed in the power of quiet leadership. Rao's leadership was characterized by his ability to navigate the complexities of coalition politics and his deft hand in managing both domestic and international challenges. Yet his legacy as the architect of India's economic reforms was often overshadowed by the limelight enjoyed by others. Today, P.V. Narasimha Rao is remembered as the father of India's modern economy. His vision and courage helped transform India from an inward-looking, protectionist state to an emerging economic superpower. His reforms laid the groundwork for India's growth story in the 21st century. Narasimha Rao was one of the most transformative leaders in India's history. Though he may not have sought fame, his contributions are undeniable. India owes much of its economic success to his foresight and leadership. P.V. Narasimha Rao's legacy continues to inspire generations of leaders. Though the world may have forgotten the quiet man who steered India through one of its darkest economic moments, his vision lives on in every thriving business, every prosperous community, and every opportunity created in today's India. Fade out with a final shot of India's vibrant cities, bustling trade, and progress. This documentary is dedicated to the man who changed the course of India's history, P.V. Narasimha Rao.